My name's Corey Lucius. I'm here today at Green Hills Golf Course to tell you the story behind the Beeler Open. I am the grandson of Walter Ross Beeler, who was a tail gunner in World War II on a B-29 Super Fortress. And the story begins on May 5th, 1945. 70 years ago on May 5th, my grandpa was part of a crew that was taking off from Saipan, where they were on a mission to bomb one of the targets in Japan. They had loaded up a plane the night before with all the ammo, all the bombs, only to come in that morning about 2 a.m. to find out that they had been bumped from their original plane onto another B-29. They got onto the plane, started to taxi out the runway. At that time, they had a flagman on the runway that would, on alternating runways, have a B-29 take off every 30 seconds. Well, the engineer reported on the way up, taxiing up to get ready for their spot to take off, that the number 2 engine, which is one of 4, number 2 engine was not firing or putting out all the capacity, all the horsepower that they needed. So the engineer reported to the pilot told them to do a check and let them know. Well, by the time all the checks came back to report that number 2 engine was only producing 50% of the power and that number 3 and number 4 weren't up to snuff either, they were past what they call the point of no return. It's a 2-mile long runway. The B-29 was a large plane. They were past the point of no return, which means pretty much they were going to crash. Saipan Bay, where they took off, was on the edge of a cliff going into the water, the ocean there. They got to the end, and halfway through, the engine caught on fire, and at the end, the plane dropped and ultimately crashed in the water. Before they crashed, the pilot, Grandpa, was a tail gunner, always had a headset on, and the pilot said, "Close the darn Bombay doors," only used another expletive. And before he could even nudge the guys on either side of him, he felt a jolt that he said he could never describe. That jolt basically broke the plane apart and shoved him forward and out through where the Bombay doors are. And when he surfaced or gained conscious, we don't really know. He couldn't remember. He was about 20 yards from the tail of the plane watching it sink into the ocean. He was in 20-foot swales. There was a crew of 11. He doesn't know how long he was in the water. He said it felt like eternity, but it wasn't that long. He heard other voices in between the swales. They all hooked up. There was 4 of them, and a boat came and rescued him, got him onto the boat, took him down to the infirmary, got him stitched up. Grandpa had a cut on his chin, still had a scar on his chin until the day he passed away. He had bumps and bruises, a broken arm, and just some other minor injuries. But out of the crew of 11, only 4 survived. And actually, when they were walking them up the next morning, this happened about 4 a.m. finally when they crashed. When they woke up the next morning and they were transferred off the boat into the Air Force base, they wouldn't even let them look out into the water. Come to find out, the waters where they crashed was shark infested. Before he passed away, he told my mother and my grandmother all these stories. We have them written and documented. He said that they thought they heard other voices that night, but they don't know if the sharks got them or the swales or jet fuel, whatever the case may be. I guess we'll never know. But in hindsight, we actually found out, how they got bumped from this other plane, how he only survived, we'll never know. But this was on May 5th, 1945, after he was at several hospitals, and then after he was released from sick bay. He had a couple desk jobs as a clerk. January 9th, roughly around there, of 1946, he came home, got discharged from the Air Force, and he always promised himself that if he ever worked again, on May 5th, he would call that a celebratory day, or being alive day, now known as Beeler Day. The first Beeler Day was actually celebrated that May in 1946. His dad and his brother and him went out, did mushroom hunting and some other things, and then shortly thereafter, the next year, they started a golf, I would say, outing. Basically, a few people got together, started golfing. Then they went to the horse races, harness racings. My grandpa had a love for horse races as well. Tell all your friends, tell all your family, men, women, children, you're all invited. If you want to have a good time, come out on May 2nd at Green Hills, and we'll see you then. Thank you for your time.